practice is when people have gone through stuff or lived a certain way, they tend to carry along baggage from the past, sometimes even without knowing, and this tends to pull them back from living their full potential. But something strikes me about the story of Frances Okoro. Having been addicted to pornography and masturbation for 8 years, she claims to have lived free of it for 3 years now. In case it's your first time, this is Chit Chat, the classroom. It's real people sharing life stories and lessons. I am your host, Chisom Maduike. Frances is a lawyer, author of 4 books, a speaker, and the founder of the Women at the Well group. And she's done all of this at the age of 25. Girl, I am so honored to have you on Chit Chat, the classroom. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, how are you able to have authored 4 books at 25? How is that even possible?
Truth be told, I actually stumbled into the world of writing books. I know some persons wouldn't believe that, but I started. First book I wrote, which was not the first one that came out, the Purpose book. I was replying an email. I had the blog, and then I was replying an email from someone who was confused about what part to tread. And I was writing the email out to her, and it spanned on for some pages and pages, and all of a sudden I heard, this is a book. The Holy Spirit said, this is a book. So I'm a Christian, and that's the basis of everything that I do. And so the Holy Spirit said, this is a book. And I'm like, a book? From writing an email? No, for the longest time I didn't want to obey, but... Oh, okay. So you're one of those, so many people tend to shy away from things like this. Especially if it's something they were not very prepared for. Everything that, I would say for everything God has told me to do, I've never been one to really just jump in and go all out to say, okay, I'm ready. I don't think, because it gives you this big picture and it just seems like such a huge thing and you don't know how to start.
And then there's just a small you to handle it.
That's the way it started, and that's the way I've written the 4 books. It's just when it's time, you just get the instruction, like, it's time for you to go all out with this, and then there's just grace.
You just do it.
I just do it.
But I believe it has not always been like this. You publicly shared a story of your struggle with masturbation and pornography and all that. I mean, something that a lot of people are secretly going through. Yeah. What gave you the courage to come out and share such?
You asked me to. God asked me to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I had grown up in a family that was, went through stuff, and then I encountered pornographic magazines from my brother when I was about just 3. I was maybe 13 or 12 or so. And then I went to school, from pornographic magazines, entered into masturbation, and then had a phone and entered into all the X-rated sites. And so I was just really deep into this. But nobody would know, and at first it wasn't anything bad because I wasn't a believer. And so it didn't seem like anything was wrong. Till I became born again, and then I realized that every time I did that, there was just something on the inside of me that didn't agree with it, and that was when the struggle for me started. And so I struggled for maybe, became born again 2011 and got my freedom 2014. And so
what is your freedom?
Like free. Okay, so the Bible talks about setting the captives free.
Okay.
And so what many people do not understand is that masturbation, it's not something you can stop on your own. You can't just wake up one morning after being roped in sexual addictions and say, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, it's not possible with strength. I have a few persons who come to me and share their own stories, and you find one thread running around through them all. Some of them don't want to do it anymore.
They just end up.
But they can't, so it's like, and I went through that, so there's no condemnation, no judgment for those sort of persons. Because I went through being in church, being someone who seems all put together outside, and at night there's this thing you're struggling with that you can't seem to stop yourself. So you go to church, you do your departmental stuff, you're tongue speaking, and people know you as this mama, papa, but then
you go back and you're back at square one.
Back at square one. So that was me.
But were you ever stigmatized for sharing your story?
No, the response was actually surprising. I can only count one incident where I was almost stigmatized, and that was by someone who I think she had probably issues from the past or issues from her family. And so when I shared the full story on the abortions and everything, she came at me and she was like, oh, what if somebody is pregnant and the person is not ready to have the baby? What would you say? And it seemed like she was kind of attacking me.
Okay, that's not even stigmatization. Okay, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. Some people would tend to defend it.
Yes, people will tend to defend and define you and how they think that you should be. If from your story, from my story, it's not agreeing with what
or what society portrays. But nobody has come up to say, or no one has treated you any less because of that experience or because you came out to share it.
No. I think the only persons I struggled with should be my parents. And the first time I ever shared the story, before the book and everything, I had a speaking engagement. And so that was the first time ever that I went full, all out to share. And I went home and I didn't even tell my parents what I spoke about. My mom was like,
but they had heard.
What did you share? I'm like, don't worry, it's done. But of course they got to know. And so I struggled for the longest time with feeling like a less than daughter. Even though I had left that part, there was this shame around me that just seemed like, oh, it's all out there and you're less than that daughter that they think
that you should be.
You should be and that they should have.
But I'm sure they've gotten over that phase now.
They have. It's more of like now, since they see some fruits, it's beginning to show that, oh, she's not crazy after all. Because I remember there was a time my dad saw a video of somewhere I went to speak and I was sharing my story or something, and he was like, it's enough, don't share your story anymore, that part is past, this is it, And I told him I wasn't giving my story to hide under a bushel. And the truth of the matter is that I am where I am today because I obeyed God to share my story. It was like obey for the next level. Obedience precedes
the
elevation. And upliftment. And it brought healing to me too, because most persons come and they're like, oh, you're such a blessing, it's your story set me free and all that. But it brought healing to me, because one thing God told me was that I still had scars. If you're not willing to share, if you can't talk about the things that you've gone through in the past, it means that one way or the other, you are still tied to the past. Because if you are new, it should be I'm healed. I wasn't healed. And that was why I was still hiding under darkness and hiding under supposed is in the past, but it really wasn't, And so in sharing, every time I share, one thing is I die, my flesh dies, because I'm more like, oh, this story is for someone out there, it's not for me. So the selfish me
dies,
takes a seat back. But then secondly, healing, like now I'm not really tied to it anymore. There was just something that happened on the inside of me, this healing, this restoration, this total fullness, like yes, it's gone and it's gone. And secrecy died also.
Interesting.
The reason why some persons struggle from pornography and masturbation is because they are roped in secrecy.
Because they cannot share it.
They can't share it.
Because they feel when they share it, the person you're speaking to, the person you're sharing with, will begin to see you in a certain light.
That's true. But then it's also a perfect weapon to keep you trapped.
I agree with you. I agree with you. If you stick around on Chit Chat, the classroom, Frances will be taking us on her journey to overcoming sexual addiction and how all she has done to get to where she is today. You are awesome for sticking around on Chit Chat, the classroom. Frances Okoro was going to tell us how she overcame sexual addiction, a habit she's been used to, or rather, should I say, a habit she was used to for 8 years of her life. a lot of people are really struggling with sexual addiction, with gay, lesbianism, pornography, masturbation, and all that. How exactly were you able to overcome it? What did you do? I mean, I have to put it that way. Like, tell us what exactly it is. What was it that you did?
Okay, I tried to do.
Okay.
And my doing didn't get me
anywhere.
It's funny when I actually tell about how I what's the word? I like to say got my freedom, because really it's freedom. It was just the word. Like I said, I'm a Christian. It was just the word of God. And funny enough, it was a word I had seen forever. Because
I was going to say everybody reads the Bible.
Yes, it was a word I'd seen for forever. And it was Galatians 5:16 that says, walk in the Spirit and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. And the funny thing is, the word actually came alive to me in the midst of falling. I had fallen. So what happened when, before I was born again, it would be like a constant every night thing that you have to I have to compulsorily, watch an X-rated movie and masturbate alongside, like an almost nightly thing. But then I got born again and I really loved God, and so it started happening like an interval of some months, and I'm going to talk about, because you have a part to play.
Okay.
God does the biggest, He gives you that. There's this internal. You just know that you are released, but you have a part to play. So I'll get to that. But I'll go through months without anything, and all of a sudden, one day just brings me down. And so after law school, bar finals, I was alone in the room and everybody had gone. I just wanted to have fun and watch movies and all, and started watching romantic flicks and all that. And one day I fell. And in the midst of me falling, the Holy Spirit actually whispered to me in that scenario, and He said, walk in the Spirit and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. I had been studying Romans. I studied Romans 8, and it linked me to that Galatians 5:16. So I fell, and then of course the condemnation is, for anybody who's ever been wrapped in such things, there's just such guilt and such condemnation. And so I didn't want to go to church. But it was my pastor's birthday, and so I went to church. But when I got to church, I was like, I'm not worshiping, I'm not lifting up my hands. Who am I? I'm this dirty, rank.
Feel you're not worthy.
All not worthy. And then the only thing God began to minister to me was that I should forgive myself. He has forgiven me. And that's another point for people who are roped in this, because sometimes you fall and the next thing on your mind is just stay away from, if you're Christian, stay away from God. One day, 1 week, but the truth is that the farther you stay away, the more likely you are to
drift.
fall again. You drift more, And so that was just what He told me. I've forgiven you, forgive yourself. And He said also that your righteousness is of me. So I had to start studying on what it means to be the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. But anyway, that was it. That was it. And the word just came alive to me in a way that something happened on the inside of me. You're like, really? Walk in the Spirit and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. And I started asking, what does it mean to walk in the Spirit? And so I realized that if I wanted to sustain my freedom, there can be no space for laxity in my life. And so He began to show me those gateways. I call them doors through which you open them and all of a sudden you fall. I don't do romantic movies. I don't do normal movies. I don't do normal songs, contemporary songs. I don't.
Wait, you don't do normal movies like movies?
I don't.
So what kind of movies? You don't watch movies?
I watch Christian movies, and it's like once in a blue moon. You ask me how I'm able to write.
Okay. Okay, because you have all the time.
During NYSC, I used to binge on movies. That was part of the doors that was opening in my life. I used to binge on I loved romantic flicks, comedy, romantic ones with the erotic scenes and all that. Not like they are opening their bodies, but something's happening.
Yeah.
And so during NYC, God told me that it was a distraction. and that if I go on like that, I wouldn't be able to do the things that he wants me to do. And so, apart from shutting the door of movies because of erotic scenes, someone who is addicted to sexual addictions is actually very, what's the word now? Pictures stick to your mind.
Okay.
Words stick to your mind. So even though such persons might say, oh, I've stayed clear of this for a while, pictures from 2 weeks or a week ago suddenly come to your mind when you're alone. They just flash through. And so I had to shut that door. I shut it for distraction's sake. For purpose sake, I shut it.
Wow.
And then I shut it for sexual addiction's sake. I don't.
You are living a really restricted life. Like, you know what works. Well, yeah.
I'm serious.
You know what works for you, and you've been able to stick to that. You've been able to live by that.
The desire left. Because now, at first, it used to be that I walk into a room and, you know, it's a struggle to stay off the TV. But now, I don't even care.
I can imagine.
A TV in my house.
When last did you watch it?
Not be on for like, okay, I put it on this morning because I plugged in a laptop with HDI for workouts.
Oh, okay.
But really, it could not be on for a month, 2 months, and no one really cares.
Okay, that is coming as a shock to me because I love TVs. I mean, like, what else would I do? That's my favorite pastime, movies, TVs.
That's the thing. I started learning to fill in my time with better things. Oh. So before, I might say, oh, I'm idle, and because it comes from idleness. You think you're idle and you're bored. So the next thing to do is to flip through online
content,
download something, you know. But I started learning to fill in my time with better things. So I'm online, but if there's this blog that seemingly has good content, but it's not good for me, I know that I should shut it down. And so after shutting it
down,
that
has come with a lot,
something else.
So you don't have extra time on your hands, and that must have come with a lot of discipline.